Hello and welcome. Today on our show, we'll be taking a look at monuments and our cities. Around the world, monuments have assumed a very significant place that when you mention a monument, people know exactly the city or the state you're talking about. Okay, let me give you an example. You say Statue of Liberty, and people know you're automatically talking about New York. You say Taj Mahal, India comes to mind. You say the Great Pyramids, and Egypt jumps up to your mind. What that means is that our monuments are truly significant. Monuments do not only hold historical and cultural values, they also have economic value. Bringing it home, Nigeria as a country has a fair share of monuments around the nation. But what are the state of these monuments and how are they contributing to our socio-cultural and economic life? That's what we'll be looking at on today's show. It is Weekend Deal, coming to you live from the network service of the NTA. My name is Patience Eloy Abba, and I'm excited to be here. I am also excited that you've joined us on today's show, and I have one more reason why I am excited. Can you guess? Okay, let me just tell you. Today, I am not home alone. I am with the beautiful, delectable Aisha, looking all radiant.
Oh, thank you so much. And talking about looking radiant, you are so looking Steve today.
Proudly Benue.
Exactly. Well, talking about monuments across the world, you know, Great Wall of China has, like, the moment you say the Great Wall, you don't even have to say China.
We all know it's China.
And then the funny thing is, in Nigeria, in 1974, Guinness Book of World Records actually tagged Benin Moat that's popularly known as Iya in Benin. It's the as the second greatest man-made wall in the world.
A monument is a building, structure, or a site that is of historical importance or interest. That's the simple definition. But our next feature, which is a backgrounder put together by Francis Ogbe, will not only tell us the definition, but tell us the need to preserve our monuments. Let's see this together.
Nigeria is a culturally diverse country with over 250 local languages. These various cultures have rich histories and backgrounds, and the local people are incredibly proud of their heritage. The heritage comes in the form of ancient places of worship, artifacts, old towns, buildings, and monuments, to mention a few.
National monuments had to be preserved because the preservation shows that we are just coming from somewhere for the future generation and generations yet unborn. If you leave them intact, they have questions. Who built this? Some were built by the British, the colonial masters. And you tell them these were built by the British, that they left us about 60-something, 100 and something years ago. That becomes a big reminder on historical lane that humanity is founded some millions of years ago, and each epoch wants to be remembered by what it is known for. A lot of people, even in their own family compounds, instead of going ahead to set up a new structure, they start breaking down the one built by their grandfather, not knowing that that is the relics. That's the ancient monument where you're coming from. That's the symbol of your grandfather. That yes, your grandfather lived, yes, it's not as big as what they are building today, but it's also good to preserve it so that the children unborn will know that this is their thinking. This is the architecture of their grandfather who died about 100 years ago. So it's preserved in some parts of the world, but unluckily for us in Nigeria, we don't know what to do with history.
Nigeria, a nation rich in culture, has no shortage of historical buildings, monuments and landmarks, as some have made the list of UNESCO World Heritage Sites. Here are a few examples. Mary Slessor House, Calabar; National War Museum, Abia; First Story Building in Nigeria, Badagry; Ancient Nok Settlement, Kaduna; Ancient Kano City Walls, and the Ubunike Cave in Anambra.
It becomes very disturbing that in most cities, especially secretariats that were built by the British, with solid, some red bricks, some hard furnitures and others, and you see them being demolished in the name of a new secretariat, or what they call the urban renewal. Most remarkable, as far as I remember, is those the regional secretariats in Enugu, in Ibadan, in Kaduna. I don't forget those regional secretariats. It gives me a big impression. And in front of them as well, you could also find some monuments, either tiger or lions. But most of the time, you do not find them anymore. I remember how beautiful the Tafawa Balewa Square in Lagos used to be. But these days, they are trying to mangle what they thought is not a good idea. But to me, which is an ancient monument, a symbol of the relics of that era.
There is need for conscious and guided interventions in city heritage protection, as many of these structures are fast wasting away. The attrition rate of the structures are easily perceived from the ease with which such sites and structures are replaced with new projects.
The monuments might not fall in your own thinking, but for God's sake, you leave it as it is, build a new one that reflects your own perception of what is excellent. You find somebody who will do a demarcation of thoughts. I might return to the old relics.
Assessing the prospect of heritage land use and conservation of old historical buildings, sites and monuments cannot be overemphasized, for cultural heritage is often seen as an important asset for the development of the local environment. Also, it determines tourism and investment attractiveness of such sites.
There's no Emir that said if you build another castle that nobody will enter there, you will not enter there. You can build it once in a while, you stay in the new ones. Once in a while, you host people in the old one. What are you doing? You are doing advancement. You are trying to develop the place. Instead of hooking up in one place and trying to demolish an ancient symbol. Because these are symbolic. That's why they have what is called World Heritage. Why is the Egyptian castles being visited? You never see them to change the structure or call whatever you call blend. They don't blend anything. Rather, they have architects and builders whose business is to try to maintain it in the shape that it was found earlier in the day. Why do you do so? It's because of the historical nature, the value bequeathed on what our grandfathers did.
Our focus on Weekend Deal today will be on our cities, our monuments.
Our cities, our monuments. Now, think of this. 137 years ago. That's a century and more than a quarter ago. And that is the age of the first government house in Nigeria, in the city of Calabar. How are the people of Calabar treating this first government house? Let's take a look at NTA Calabar's report on this iconic building and other monuments around Calabar.
Structures and objects with historical, cultural, scientific, and archaeological value are commonly found in our environment. Some are given necessary protection for the sake of posterity, while others are yet to receive such concern. In Cross River State of Nigeria, there are several iconic symbols and places of value, which have been discovered and given appropriate recognition, gaining the status of national monuments. These include the Independence Statue, Basuduke Effigy, Maurice Lazo House and Tomb, Duketown Presbyterian Church, Hubbardle Premier Block, Monoliths, Old Residency Museum, among others.
In monument preservation, we don't change. We allow it to remain the way it is. You don't deface monuments, because by the time you deface monuments, the value will not be there again.
A prefabricated building made in 1884 in Britain and shipped to Calabar, which served as Nigeria's first government house, existing over 137 years. The old residency was first used as the administrative head office and residence of the colonial administrators. It later became the administrative headquarters of southern Nigeria before the seat of government moved to Lagos. This building served as a ministerial guest house in the 1950s and as administrative headquarters of the East Wales South Eastern State after the Nigerian Civil War. Due to the major roles which it has played in the history of Nigeria, this structure was declared a national monument in 1959. Today, it is housing the National Museum and the Old Residency Calabar, established in 1986. Apart from its inbuilt gallery, the Old Residency Museum also holds a museum shop, exhibition hall, museum village, and a special library. One of the outstanding features of this movement is the historical prison for traditional rulers who opposed the then colonial government, where the popular Oba of Arawon Baise of Benin was detained.
So till today, the cell is still there. They were using part of it now as a cyber cafe. So it's a kind of modernization. When visitors come to, we take them to that place. So they were also planning to have, a gallery, an exhibition that talks about the Oba of Benin.
This prestigious building has benefited from some routine maintenance through yearly allocative government resources. Aside colonial history, the gallery has experienced the introduction and acceleration of exhibition on the Cross River region, nature and culture, with Calabar terracottas, which are the oldest in Nigeria. This is an indigenous technology that has existed in this area between the 5th to the 16th century. Though still standing, it calls for more attention from stakeholders.
Our monuments are our history, and it is who we are, and the need to preserve them can never be overemphasized. Now, in Lagos, in 1869, the first cathedral was built. Also, the first story building in Nigeria was built in Badagry. Have you ever wondered what the status of that building is? NTA Network Center has done a feature on it. I really want to see. Let's see it together.
Tafawa Balewa Square, formerly known as Race Cas, one of the rich monuments that reminds Lagosians of the colonial incursion and the struggle for independence. Presently, the 14.5-hectare ceremonial ground still reminds many Nigerians of how excited they were when the Union Jack was lowered, paving way for the Nigerian flag to be hoisted for the first time in October 1st, 1960. Indeed, one of Nigeria's monuments, which is synonymous to our national history, that can be eroded if deliberate efforts are not in place to preserve it.
Some of them are dilapidated to the level that we have to retouch them, but it will still maintain the normal original look. On four-story building, this is the architectural design. So this is the premises. By the time we finish, this is how the premises will look like, without touching the four-story building itself. Because within the compound, there's enough space there. This is how it will look like. And it's going to have pavilion because there's enough. So if we have crowd, people can sit down there and relax. So this is the building, the 4-story building itself.
Looking at the bookshop house on Broad Street, Lagos, one can easily assume that it is an ordinary structure. However, the technology that was used in the construction reveals that between the hours of 9 a.m. to 5 p.m., direct sun rays cannot get to the building, a technology that budding architects can emulate in this day construction industry. The Deputy Managing Director, CSS Bookshop Limited and Bookshop House Limited, Adegbola Additional, reveals more uniqueness about the structure.
Let me make a clarification first. There are two companies here. There's CSS Bookshops Limited that started in 1869 by Church Missionary Society, CMS. And it started as a training company that provides materials for the use of schools, for missions, and so on. As time went on, after introducing religion by the Anglican Church, CSS Bookshop Limited is owned by the Anglican Church, Church of Nigerian Communion. So it introduced, after the missions, they introduced education. Now that made the company to trade also in books, literature, Bibles, and so on, to serve both the missions and schools. The building itself started in 1973 when the foundation was laid and was being built. But before then, the bookshop had operated in some places, not far from this place. The time it was commissioned, Bookshop House here was the tallest building on the highland. And the floor, the up, that is the roof, was meant for, it's an helipad. And the technology of this building is that if there is fire, it doesn't extend, it cannot extend to the next floor. At a time in the Nigerian history, when the Governor General sits, the Managing Director of CSS Bookshop Limited will sit next to him. And when the budget of the country is being crafted, CSS Bookshop Limited will be consulted.
The Cathedral building on Marina, Lagos Island, the oldest Anglican cathedral in Nigeria, built in 1869, houses the relics of Reverend Dr. Samuel Ajayi Crowther, a former enslaved Yoruba man who became the first African bishop in the Anglican Church. For a fact, strategic plans that revolves around these relics and monuments in terms of tourism development in Lagos State cannot be overemphasized.
We are talking to some consultants, as I rightly said, that if we say government should do everything, virtually we can't achieve. So it's going to be PPP project that look, okay, this monument, handle it. This is what you can get back to the government as revenue. So that's what we are looking at. Fela's Shrine, we are trying to discuss with the family, because it's one of the shrine itself is one of the monuments that we have to preserve and keep.
Indeed, our ancient places of worship, buildings, relics, and monuments are treasures worthy of preserving for future generations to come.
Preservation of these historical monuments cannot be overemphasized. All hands must be put on deck in order to see that we preserve such monuments. And talking about monuments, okay, before that, I know some people, there is a controversy that the first-story building is not in Lagos, it's in Kogi. Well, I leave it to you to go and find out the details of that. But then we're still talking about our cities, our monuments, and one city, one state that has gathered a lot of monuments is Niger State, Zungeru to be precise, the village or town of Zungeru. What do they have for us? They have Lord Lugard's house there. We have the first birthplace of Nigeria's first president, Dr. Nnamdi Azikiwe, and also the late Odumegwu Ojukwu. Let's take a look at that.
British forces occupied Zungeru in September 1902, which was then populated by the Gwari. On arrival to Zungeru, the British colonialists cleared the savannah forest area and established military barracks, hospital, residential quarters, and market, among other things. In 1902, the British colonial administrators constructed a dam for the supply of drinking treated water for the control of waterborne diseases. The treated water is stored in tanks that supply the various water channels to barracks, hospital, residential quarters. The same dam was used to generate electricity in the city, and both light and water were made available for 24 hours daily throughout the period of their stay in Zungeru.
All the places are vandalized. 10 years back, if you have been here, all that reservoir, you will see them there. If you look at up there,
yes,
there is tank,
yes,
that are distributing the water.
Yes.
So the water are treated. The one is for distributed the water, and where one is generating the electricity.
The train used during the period were driven by coal engines, with their repair workshop and coal warehouse still traceable today, while the first engine train head was brought to Minna train station as a monumental property. Lugard, who was then Governor General, built officers' mess for Africans, for Europeans, and for himself. Although nearly all of the building, which has dilapidated and fallen, can still be traceable by some features such as the cemented tables and flower pot in his residence and the swimming pool he built in his residence for himself and his family members.
Presently, we have so many leftovers of things and structures and buildings and monuments and structures that they left behind. The first swimming pool is still there. If you go, but there is no water inside anyway. But the swimming pool is there, and that was the first in the whole of West Africa, I'm sure. And we have buildings. We still have the colonial officers' mess. The building is still there, though dilapidated. But when you go there, you will see structures that are still there.
When Lugard was asked, how about the structures you put in Zungeru? How do we do with them? He said they should be left to rot away. Left to rot away.
I'm standing at the birthplace of Dr. Nnamdi Azikiwe. I'm standing at his own bed house where he was born. This is the building. It is a 3-bedroom flat. These are the remains of the building.
Zik attended his early primary education in Zungeru. The school, which is still in existence to this day, has undergone some renovations.
The nice thing is that we have preserved them with the aim of, I don't want to say remodeling, but certainly we don't want to destroy them, except for those that have been broken down. What do I use? Because of long stay and non-use.
Anglican Church was also built by the British administrators in 1905 and was also the church attended by Zik's father while in Zungeru. The old structure still stands.
I'm standing at the birthplace of Brigadier General Odumegu Ojukwu, the Ikemba of Inui. This is his birthplace. This is where he was born. This is the building of the houses where he was born.
Today, there are nearly 170 landmarks that are traceable to the British administrators in Zungeru, while others might have been tampered with by road construction, vandalization, or decay.
One of the monuments that has been standing for a long time, it's in the ancient city of Kano, and we are talking about Kano Ancient City Walls. And we'll take a report from NTA Kano on this. And don't forget, our program is interactive. Do send us your messages after this report.
History reconnects past with present. It relates some of the most significant events that happened in the past, so that the present societies will appreciate the past cultures that evidently led to their emergence. And most of such history is often expressed through symbolic representations, monuments, artifacts, and other historic sites that tell so much about our past. The ancient city of Kano is today one of many cities around the world that has successfully preserved some of the historic monuments, relics, and artifacts that attract many people from within and outside Nigeria. Ancient City Wall of Kano is one of the monuments that falls under UNESCO classified international historic sites. This is part of the ancient City Wall of Kano, one of the most important historical monuments in West Africa. It was established at the end of the 12th century. And as you can see, it has a radius of 14 kilometers and a height of 15 feet. It was established by the then rulers of Kano primarily for security and defense purposes.
The history shows that, like before, the setting of the people is almost war. Everywhere is war. That's why you see that some people live in caves. Some go to mountains and live and so on. So because of the fearing of attack. So what the people of Kano did, so with their own technology of that time, so they have to surround the whole city with a wall.
The technology used in building this great wall no doubt shows how sophisticated and highly skilled the ancient people of Kano were.
So if an enemy is coming, you know he will not come through the ditches. He must look for the gate. And the gate there, that's where the soldiers are. And if you look at the city wall, there are some holes like this. So that one, it was where the soldiers of then Kano, where the soldiers will stand looking at the enemies. If the enemies are coming from far distance, even some kilometers away, even more than 20 kilometers, because they will see the crowd is coming with the dust that is coming up. So they will know that, okay, they will be suspecting that something is coming.
Gidan Makama at the city center of Kano was built during the reign of Muhammad Rumfa, the then ruler of Kano, in the year 1440, and that was his residence. But today it serves as a national museum keeping custody of ancient artifacts and relics.
All these rooms that you are seeing, it has been used. So it has been used as part of the palace. Even this where we are sitting now here, it was if the emir want to relax in the evening, this way that he comes and sit down.
Looking at the architectural design of these ancient buildings, one cannot but appreciate the artistic mastery of the ancient people of Kano. Our next destination is one of the most important historic sites in Kano, a place that had once been the socio-economic drive of the ancient Kano. This is Kovarmata dye pit here in Kano. This place has been here since 1498, and as you can see, it is in this place that they dye fabrics of different indigo colors that have been so much prized not only in Nigeria but across West Africa.
In the olden day, up to now, this place is not relying only Nigerian. We rely on our neighboring country like West Africa and Europe and the American too. So in locally, most of the Nigerian, most of the southern people like Southeast and the South, they buy a lot of production in Upper Matadine Pit.
Today, about shekara 70 ko 80 da soma wannan aikin. Dan ya faka ma.
I have been on this job for over 70 years and I'm still on it. I inherited it from my father, who inherited it from his great-grandfather. How about the children? Are they into the business? Yes, of course they are. Had you been here in the morning, you would have seen them. If Gabon will invest in this business, they will earn a lot of income and we will also benefit more.
Throughout history, Kano has been extremely skilled in weaving and dyeing of cotton cloth and is still flourishing, but not without challenges.
So the problem we're facing here, a lot of Nigerian people, there's no patronizing our own mates. That is the problem we're facing. If Nigerian people, they are to buy our own production, so you can see any pit is often somebody's action inside.
Short break. When we come back, we continue to deal. Don't go away.
Well, thanks for staying tuned. Yes, don't forget our program is interactive. You can send in your messages and we will read them. Yes, we're talking about our city, our monuments. And when we talk about monuments, when you look at let's say Lagos, for example, it's a metropolitan city. One wonders, with the buzzing of daily lives activities, one wonders, is there any tourism potential in Lagos? And ETV, NTA ETV, put together this for us to see the potential of tourism in Lagos. Let's take a look.
Lagos, a mega city, tourist attraction, and a land of opportunities. A city with endless choices of sights, sounds, and activities. Our monuments tell us a story of what happened in the past and promotes the respect for those who lived in different times. How well do we preserve our monuments, particularly our old buildings constructed by our forefathers? Our monuments are considered to be old-fashioned. Most structures are now being demolished and renovated by those who inherited them and are supposed to preserve such buildings as a legacy for the children.
We have buildings that belong to the government, and we have buildings, older buildings that belong to individuals. Individuals are meant to do whatever they think is right of them at a point they think needs restructuring. Most of the olden days buildings are a floor and 2 floors building respectively. And in this modern day time, there are going to be a kind of development on the existing structures.
Main problem in Lagos, inconsistency one. Then a lot of women, a lot of wives, a lot of children that doesn't have love within themselves will cause a lot of problems to destroy the building, sell it out, like many in my area now, they've sold it out.
Definitely, Lagos is a metropolitan city. Development keeps on coming up every day. And what I would say is that there are many reasons for those monuments to be demolished, either by the descendants of the owner or as a result of government acquisition.
Our monuments tell us stories of our past events and how well we preserve them for the future. Preserving our old buildings is important because without a doubt, these monuments are the reflection of our history and helps us understand and respect people who lived in different eras.
There should be preservation of our building to serve as a monument, and you know, for our children yet unborn, you know, to see, you know, the legacy that their forefathers left behind for them.
Our buildings are historical and give people a sense of place and connection to the past. It is important to protect and preserve our old buildings so we can learn about our historical background and keep a legacy for our children yet unborn.
One of the best ways to preserve our legacy for children yet unborn to see is to perhaps, number one, maintain the properties, maintain the building. We can modernize it. We can give it the basic modernization required, so that when it is reasonably modernized, it will stay longer than expected, and then our children yet unborn can see.
Our monuments represent our history and identity, our bond to the past, to our present, and the future.
Welcome back. Moving on, the conversation continues, and joining the conversation now is the Director General of the Nigerian Tourism Development Corporation. During the course of the week, Weekend Deal had a chat with DJ, which is Folorunso Coker. Let's see this.
Tourism potentials of any nation transcend beyond tourism sites. Some tourists are fascinated by classic architectural designs, which can be found in almost every part of the country. Sadly, however, these historical monuments and heritage are gradually being pulled down for new structures, almost erasing our history as a people.
I was moved to tears when I was working in Lagos, and I tried to stop the actually, when I was here, tried to stop the demolition of a building, I think it's in Tinubu Square. Every brick in this building was brought over from Brazil. Every brick in this building. And there was really no reason I could think of bringing it down. We are destroying our cultural heritage in terms of bits of history that are so us, that are physical structures, monuments to the existence of those before us. I've asked myself, is it that we don't value what they did? Is it our hunger, our quest for the glamorous and the new? I've really found it difficult to answer those questions. But one of the things that I'm about to initiate is something called the Green Plaque. And that is to start to put, you know, those blue plaques, this is where Herbert Macaulay lived. This is where Awolowo lived. This is where Tafawa Balewa lived. This is where Zik lived, in the hope that in identifying those places, maybe some sort of reverence, some sort of respect will be given to those places, and the hunger to destroy. Most of these people don't really build anything wonderful on the lands they destroy. They just sell it. So to identify and label cultural heritage sites, we're starting, you know, maybe the third quarter of this year. And it's just a plaque. It's a sponsored plaque, and it will contain information about who, why that place is. We will also collaborate with Google on it, so that if your significant locations setting is on Google, you'll be able to see that place will pop up when you come to that proximity, when you come close to it. The only way now that we can truly preserve our heritage for generations and generations unborn to see is on digital platforms.
Art and architectural enthusiasts have cautioned that rather than pull down these architectural monuments and heritage, these structures could be preserved as tourist attraction or transformed by professionals without altering the aesthetic pleasure.
Most of the tourism assets we have in Nigeria are in the hands of state governments or sometimes the church or communities or private individuals. I can only encourage them to invest in the restoration, not the renovation, the restoration of some of these artifacts or historical sites. For example, Mary Slessor's house in Calabar should be restored, not renovated, not, you know, with a tub of brand new paint onto it, and you know, it has to be restored properly by somebody who understands the process of restoration of old wood. The Great Wall of Kano, fantastic place, but not in the condition that it used to be in. Can we restore it? We can't. But can we not damage it any further? Yes. The waterfalls in Gurara, in Owu, stop bleeding the headwaters. The waterfall is coming from an altitude, from this height. They bleed the waters that are supposed to come in this raging rush. The pool in which it falls into, clean it up. The rock face, clean it up. Buy a small 5 kVA generator and some underwater lights. Light up the pool at night. Create toilets that you and I will be comfortable using. Write to the telcos to please provide signal there because there's now tourist traffic going there. Create a bush bar and restaurant where you can eat a local delicacy and drink some cold water. Ask some of the local artisans to create some artifacts that there's a little crafts market. All these are the little things that, you know, you go to countries abroad. It's a variation of one of these things that you enjoy. But they are state assets. They are to be funded by state resources or local government resources because these assets belong to them. The days where the federal government had a pile of cash that it was just waiting to dole out, it's long gone. It's now about you doing the best with what you have where you are. There's a Great Wall of Benin. There's a Great Wall of Kano. There's Shumbu Eredu, the great trench that runs from Ekpe to Benin. And they all have such rich pre-colonial histories to them. As best as we can, and with the festivals around those areas, we try and do a sounds and sights of, like the Abuja video that we did. And we try and tell the story and put it on the platforms to encourage people to go to this site. I have always been an advocate of domestic tourism, even before I got to Abuja. Domestic tourism is the backbone, it's the foundation on which international tourism of any sort will ever rest. If you don't consume more of Nigeria, more of your own, in terms of tourism assets, you will never push enough money through them for them to grow and strengthen and become popular to a level where internationals will pay attention and want to come and see it. Louis Vuitton did not just wake up and become an international brand. The French consumed it for long enough for it to be so Gucci, so Champagne, or whatever it is. And that's how we have to grow our own. I strongly believe that domestic tourism is on the rise. Domestic tourism is not by just my saying so, by the numbers, by the value, is 6 times the size of international tourism. And when I look at the international tourists, how much really do they bring here to spend? What is the average spend of an international tourist compared to the bulk spend of a domestic tourist?
Some analysts are of the view that Nigeria can revamp her tourism sector and put in place the right legal framework to be a revenue earner for the nation.
Where we are now, we have growing assets on digital platforms of Tour Nigeria. If you go to certain areas where we have interacted with them, you will see the philosophy of the brand, well received, and it's growing. It's the same things that need to be done that have not yet been done that I am still going to focus on achieving. Administratively, we've scored some successes in terms of part of the restructuring of the organization and NTDC, etc. And it hasn't been easy. But in terms of the corporate governance, the law still must be changed. You can't compete with Dubai that is now changing its laws to permit alcohol and unmarried couples to live in the same room in hotels. You can't compete with them with the laws we have. The laws that we have must take into consideration our contemporary concerns, our issues, and address them in a legal framework that allows businesses to thrive, that allows people to borrow and invest in tourism because it is a business. The laws are in both, the reviews of the laws are in both the taxation, the regulatory, and the legislative. Those things need to be looked at. Everybody is screaming about double taxation, not just even double, the weight of taxation on an industry that is struggling to survive. So those things need to be looked at. The welfare package of those working in the industry needs to be looked at. Training has never been more important in tourism, both in the application of disruptive digital technologies that are now what people are using to gain an advantage in tourism. The training for that is essential. Pretty much you need to have some health training to be able to understand COVID compliance. I mean, it's simple, but wear a mask, wash your hands. That's the bottom end of it. But when people's lives are in your hands, in hotels, restaurants, etc., you as owner and the people that manage it for you must have some sort of training in terms of what not to do and what to do. We need to invest in certain things. And I'm not talking about roads. The roads in Nigeria are far better than a lot of countries I have been into. The infrastructure of this country isn't where it should be. But thank God I am Nigerian and I have this kind of infrastructure. I'd rather be Nigerian than any other African for the value of the infrastructure that we have here. I mean, I am proud enough to say that. But we need to invest in tourism infrastructure that is tourism specific, like the tourism satellite account that allows us to measure certain things, like that little black box that they put your passport in that is controlled by Interpol. It needs to be in the hotels, in all airports. I think it's in airports, but in all hotels, etc. We need to harness a lot more from digital sources, like from telecoms companies, from banks, from certain government agencies and the tax agencies. Extrapolate from those real, robust data sets, travel patterns, and be able to take decisions based on those. That is what everybody else around the world is using. They're not going to the border and counting how many people of color or non-Nigerians came across the border. That is archaic. But that is what, unfortunately, we have still been forced to practice here, but that ends now. We must go and look at the large data sources and let data speak to how we generate, how we modify policy to help tourism grow.
During their travels, colonialists built houses in familiar styles as a way of staying connected to their homelands. These houses were primarily reserved for the colonial administrators and became available to the local population at the end of colonialism. However, over the years, the houses were in some cases abandoned.
Nigeria is a city, is a country with tourism potentials, I must say. And talking about tourism potentials, we have messages they have been pouring. Let me start with this one. Good morning, Weekend Deal. I appreciate your efforts to expose Nigerians to historical monuments in several places in Nigeria. However, there are some in Abia State that are not popularized, like, oh, forgive my Hausa, this thing, Okuku Chukwu Cave in Amankalu, Alai, where Udina, Ukpabi. I know my Igbo brothers and sisters will mother me for mothering these names. Forgive me. Thank you very much. Whom our forefathers believed to be God the Creator lived before migrated to Arochukwu, where it is today called the Long Juju of Arochukwu by the colonial administration. This cave is mysterious and wonderful has mysterious and wonderful architectural rooms, parlors, shiny steams, and sands, which can serve as tourist sites to yield billions of dollars to Nigeria if properly popularized. This is coming from Dr. John Masilo Chukwu, who is the Deputy Provost Director, Federal College of Land Resources Technology, Owerri, Imo State. Yeah, very interesting. I think the importance of this program, you know,
people are discovering
exactly,
and bringing to light.
Please visit these places.
Monuments.
Another one here is saying we must embrace agri-tourism to develop our destinations to create wealth and employment for millions of youths. Coming from Ben Ogbonna, ecotourism expert. Another one here. I told you, people are pouring love here with this topic. Good morning, my people. I'm Ikukuma Na Njaba from Imo State. I love this program. Oh, we love you for loving this program. Good morning, presenters. This morning program is interesting. Thank you. You have refreshed my memory with the few places I have visited at Lagos and Calabar. Aisha, you need to take me to Kano to see such monuments. Oh. This is coming from Isaac G from Plateau. Well, I don't have to take you. I think since you've visited Calabar, Lagos, you can do yourself good to also visit other places. That's why we're bringing this to you. Well, do still stay tuned as we take this break. When we come back, we serve you with more.
Welcome back. If you're just joining us, it is Weekend Deal, and our emphasis today has been on our monuments around the nation. But a little away from that now, it is time for trending videos.
You know your voice for Lagos, you know your voice for anywhere. Hola. Pussy bear she fag. Elle fag to papa fella.
Abdul Jabbar. Happy Salah. Assalamu alaikum. Assalamu alaikum. Happy, I they come your house. I don't they come like this. You know they for Lagos. I see your post yesterday now where you write for some Snapchat say Lagos way. Can I call like this? My native will not waste. Sadiq. Abdul Sadiq. Bros, how far now? Happy Salah, happy Salah, happy Salah. Amen. Where you, Baba, they come your house like this and they see your gates. You know they live in Lagos. Where's Kanaka? Oh, Shamak. Alhaji Shamak. Alhaji Ibrahim. Happy Salah, happy Salah. for 30 days. Thank God. Funny enough, I was going somewhere, but I'm just near your gate. Let me just come in and say hello to the family and go. You know they for house. Hey! There's this thing that these Muslims do every Salah. I don't know. You just say meat now my problem. If I want to eat meat, I know where I'll get meat from. I'll go to the market and I'll buy 2,000 naira meat. I'll come home, I'll fry it, and I'll eat it. Now meat, they worry me. It isn't a dollar meat they do me. If I want your meat, I'll go buy meat fryer for her. How much is meat?
You know they see? That's one kind of driver. I beg you, I know they drive. Not that time. They drive for this Lagos road. Get out. Ha! Take you. Sorry, okay, you two, you don't right. I know this kind of. I got some idea now. This one. Everybody come down from this side. Where's your boss? If you. And then let this one. Let's it quick. Stand up. What kind of driving are you driving in this Lagos? Left that one. Left that tire. Okay. Papa, I think you left the one behind you first. You say? Left the one behind you. Okay. What's your tire? What? And the tire now. You know what I hear what? You know? Oh my gosh. Papa. Sharper problem. It's a new car. Ah! I didn't know. You are looking for me. Ah! Wow! Who is the daddy? Wow! The daddy. Who is the son? No, it's the I'm the son. Wow! I'm the son, sir. That's who you are. Please, sir. Huh? Sir. Nipo. Please, sir. Ah! Wow! Wow! Please, sir. Kill you! Hey! Sir, please, sir. Son! No! Sir, I'm not your daddy. Daddy, talk to them now. I don't know. Papa? Sir? I'm not going to I'm not sitting in this house. How do you see you? What do you know? This is a barricade for me.
Are they mad for you? Are they crazy?
Are they give me the donor?
They say are they good? But I am good for you.
Good morning. Oh, good morning.
Thank you so much for staying with us. Our history, and it is our future if you look at it critically. We must continue to preserve it. Aisha?
Yes, all hands must be put on deck in order to see that we preserve our history, because when we lose our history, we lose ourselves.
Exactly.
Yes, and of course, here is wishing all our Muslim faithful Eid Mubarak from all of us here. It has been a fantastic one. Bye-bye. We'll do it same time, same station tomorrow. Our city, our monuments.
Bye. God bless Nigeria.